So, um, what is an imaginal sanctuary that we work with? Well, first of all, the imaginal realm and that, let's say, that bridge between the real physical world of matter and the unseen world is the basis of my work. That's what I do. I work in the imaginal realm. I do guided journeys. I do energy work. I shift the reality for my clients, for the people that I work with, to transform the physical life. We go into the imaginal realm. So, how do we do that? And what is the imaginal? And I'd like you to do an exercise with me. So, we are first going to close our eyes and imagine a sanctuary. Now, very important, when I say imagine, I don't mean visualize. Maybe you are put off by the words imaginal realm, by words like imagination, or that I have to imagine something. But we all have different ways of accessing the quantum realm. In the psychic development world, they are called the clairs, right? The clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clair something, claircognizance, right? There is also clear smelling, for example, right? When you remember a smell or you feel a smell, you sense a smell, which is not here, right? Sometimes it's like a memory of a smell, for example. But we can take a different approach to those clairs, a little more relaxed. Let's say, imagine you are in Paris. For example, I told you, well, imagine you're in Paris. Close your eyes, imagine you're in Paris. So some of you will visualize the Eiffel Tower or the streets of Paris, if you've been there, or if you haven't been there, right, you just imagine, well, what are you imagining? Some of you maybe will smell fresh coffee and baguettes, or hear the sounds of traffic, or you feel the breeze on your face, or you hear the tram or the metro, or you have a feeling, whoa, I'm in Paris, I'm happy. Wow, this is amazing. If I say, imagine you are by the sea now. Just imagine you are by the sea. If you're not a visualizer, you don't have to visualize you're by the sea, right? Imagine you are by the sea. So what comes to you first? Maybe it's a sound of waves crashing on the shore, or it's the sound of seagulls. Maybe it's the sound of children laughing. Maybe you see your favorite beach. Maybe you are a visualizer. Maybe you smell the salty air or the smell of the sea, or you feel relaxed and at ease, or you feel what it's like to be in the water. Or maybe none of these things. Maybe it's just a concept, a feeling. I imagine that I am by the sea. Yeah, I can conceptualize it. I can close my eyes and imagine, conceptualize that I am by the sea. Maybe it's a metaphor. So all of this is imagining, and probably the first pathway through which that imagination appears is also your strongest intuitive gift, most likely. So if you hear things first, then your strongest gift is clear hearing, right? Clairaudience. Or if it's just conceptual, if it's just an understanding, yeah, I'm imagining that I'm by the sea. Yes, I know what you're saying, but I'm not really sure if I'm seeing, hearing, or kind of feeling anything. Then it's probably claircognizance, is that clear knowing. I just know I'm by the sea. I don't need to imagine. So then these are your clairs. your imagination is inception. It's the inception point. It's where you conceive something that is to be born into physical reality. So all of this is imagining. So don't let me or anyone else tell you or limit you in terms of how you can access the imaginal. Now, the sanctuary that I asked you to imagine is a quantum realm where we can learn and experiment in absolute safety. And our first exercise in sanctuary is to imagine an environment, a place and a time where we can stop, where we can take a break, where we can feel safe, and we can have our much needed rest from lives as they are, from the daily grind of lives. So say the word sanctuary to yourself out loud. You can close your eyes and just say sanctuary. And experience what this word represents to you. So if you say sanctuary, what does it mean? Where would it be? And don't argue with yourself about your choices or censor them at this point. This would be the first lesson, and it is to accept things exactly as they are. So your sanctuary is a place of rest, a place of peace, a place of security where you are accepted, completely safe, where nothing is demanded of you, where you have nothing to do, no one to be, just be yourself. You are protected, you are completely safe. So let's close our eyes and imagine what the sanctuary is like. What kind of place, what kind of time springs to your mind when you think of a place that would be your perfect sanctuary? And first, let's just spend some time there, a few minutes, feeling absolutely and completely safe. Or you feel completely, fully safe. And now, let's begin to look around. Still in that sanctuary, still there. What does it look like? Now, there's only one rule here: don't analyze what anything might mean. So, for example, if you find yourself in a bank vault, that's your sanctuary, sitting on a pile of gold with 5 naked strippers dancing around you. So that's your sanctuary. So you don't have to share it with anyone, and you don't have to analyze what it means. And you don't have to pretend to be hyper spiritual or super evolved because there is no test. So you can just imagine yourself in a sanctuary and feel that safety. So your sanctuary is a bank vault. It's lots of money, naked strippers, wonderful. Maybe your sanctuary is a room, a small room, but you feel so comfortable, so safe, so peaceful there. Oh my goodness. That sense of safety where you can just let your worries go, your shoulders drop, and just inhale that safety, where you can just feel safe. And as you begin to look around, you may notice things about your sanctuary. And think, how do you like it? How does it feel being there? And think of any aspects that you maybe could improve. So, for example, the first time I imagined a sanctuary, it was a small white room, kind of like whitewashed walls that you'd find in Greek houses, like Greek islands. It was a very small room with two mats on the floor. There was, in fact, another person there, a famous saint, as a matter of fact, a woman, and she was praying there. But so you may also find someone else in your sanctuary, but ideally it's your place. But in my sanctuary, there were no doors or windows. It was wonderful and safe. But if I were to come back there and if I were to do something about it, yeah, it would be nice having a door, right? So in this imaginary realm, good news is you can just imagine a door and it appears. Create a door. Just wave the magic wand. Boom, there is a door. Maybe you don't need windows. Maybe there'll be windows in the other room and you still keep your sanctuary room. But a door is good because you want to come and go as you like. Think maybe there's anything else that may be needed, maybe a chair or a table or a wall or a roof. Maybe there's clutter. Maybe when you go outside, it's a bit scary. Maybe outside is a scary landscape or everything is withered and wilted, and we just walk around and we notice, what does the landscape look like? Is there any vegetation? What time of year it is? What time of day? Are there any buildings? Any other buildings? Are there any gardens? So, in a moment, we are going to go to a different space, to a group space. But I'd like you to just look around that sanctuary and see what else is there. What else is happening in the imaginary, in that imaginal realm in your sanctuary? The first thing would be to find a way out, making a connection with the surrounding reality. And so you want a door, maybe you want a gate, you want a bridge. And you may not need to work on enlarging your sanctuary right away, but there should be something at least enough to look at, right? Something to explore. And later on, as you grow in confidence, you can build whole universes and worlds and parallel worlds and travel forward and backward in time, develop into universes, kind of create your own realities. But to start with, we just see what there is and what isn't. And let's see if in that sanctuary we can meet a guide. If you'd like to call a guide, if you were to call a guide, who would it be? Someone who can advise you and guide you. So maybe for you, it's a spirit guide. Maybe it's a guardian angel. Maybe a guide is already there. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's someone you met in life, someone who's wise and whom you admire, who you want to have there. Maybe it's a fictional character. Maybe it's Sherlock Holmes, Miss Marple. Maybe it's someone from a book you read, a play you watched. So see if there's someone already there who might want to be your guide. The fun part about the sanctuary is that it's your inner realm. So people often ask, oh, who are my spirit guides? Who is this? Who is that? And where is my direction? And where is my planet? And where is my that? But here it's your inner realm. So guess what? You can choose any guide you want, and then you can fire them and nothing happens, and you can invite another guide. So here it's a playground of learning your own magic, of learning to step into your own power. And if you want to find a spirit guide, if you want to have a spirit guide, now might be exactly the time to have a spirit guide. And so you can ask, well, who is my guide? Is it human? And don't wait more than 3 seconds. Yes or no? Human, not human. Is it a he or a she? Or it? How old? How are they dressed? What's the name? First thing that springs to your mind. Is there anything special about them? What do you like about them? And this guide can advise you and lead you and help you whenever you need. So you can even ask them now, well, what should I do with my sanctuary first? What should I begin with? What do you think I can improve on here? What's missing? And maybe the guide says, well, you could certainly use a love garden here, a garden dedicated to your love life. So that's what you're going to do first and see what a love garden looks like. Or you could use a money garden, or in that bank vault with gold and 5 or 7 strippers, or however many you had, right? It would be nice to have a table with some drinks and food, because you may need to refresh yourself every now and then. So let that guide advise you and see how that conversation flows. You are completely free. There's no pressure. There is no test. There is no, it's not a course on how to manifest a spirit guide. We're just playing around completely free. And let's think, what do we want here in the sanctuary? So think, what would you like to have in your sanctuary? Now, in life, very often we have an issue with answering, what do you want? Because guess what? Life has beaten us up enough to be a little bit cautious with what we want. It's not really what we want, right? It's what brings money, it's what is good for my family. It's what helps me survive or helps me grow or helps me proceed on my path. It's what is good for the house, what I need to cook for my family, what's healthy for my body. And then kind of we relegate what I want. Oh, I just want to drink after all this heavy stuff, or I just want chocolate, or I just want to go to sleep. But that's not what we really want. So sometimes we actually forget what we want and we forget who we are as well. So in the sanctuary game, with your eyes still closed, think of concepts or feelings that you may want. Think, for example, if you want love or abundance or friendship, maybe you want financial security, maybe you want peace, and think what may represent those things. Here's how it goes. For example, I want financial security. I close my eyes and then, well, what in my sanctuary would represent that to me? And I see a diamond cave, literally a small cave, but inside it, it's kind of like those crystal diode, right? Like that little crystalline cave. But inside it are diamonds. It's sparkling with diamonds. So I can go in and all the floor and ceiling and the walls of the cave, they're all covered in diamonds. So it's like a cave that is basically one giant diamond, maybe a crystal cave. Maybe your financial security is represented by a giant red rabbit running through the fields. Let him run. That's what you want to have in your sanctuary. And at this point, we're not arguing with the mind as to what comes in, right? As to, well, what does it represent? What does it mean? We're just letting it flow. Love. What does love represent for you? Or what would you like to represent love? A red rose. I don't know, a giant cake, a wedding canopy, right? Whatever it is. For me, love is represented by a garden. It's a rose garden. It's a beautiful rose garden. And perhaps you can take a few steps in that garden and notice how it looks, right? Is it wilted or is it good or bad, or how it goes? Maybe friendship. Well, what could represent friendship? What's your image for friendship? Maybe right now you're surrounded by 20 cats in your sanctuary, or friendship is something intangible, or it's talking to trees, right? It's the magical trees that talk to you, or it's crystals. The trick here is to use the first thing that springs to your mind. So with this in mind, let's populate that sanctuary a little bit with peace, tranquility, energy, strength, happiness, friendship, money, security, safety. And then you can come back into the present world and without analyzing anything, without kind of, and it's not necessarily changing anything right now. So you just notice, how was that interaction? How was that playful world? Not everyone likes it, not everyone gets it, it's not for everyone. But this concept of a sanctuary is the basis of a lot of magical and spiritual practices. So, for example, One very popular magical tradition that uses the imaginal realm is the Hermetic Kabbalah. And it's related to the Hebrew Kabbalah, but it's a different version. It's from the Christian world. And it's basically the correlation between the pathways of the tree of life and the spheres, mostly known through the use of tarot cards. So part of Western Hermetic Kabbalah is, for example, Rider-Waite. Those tarot cards were written in exactly that tradition. Where each arcanum represented a particular pathway or sphere on the tree of life. And so to work with the energy. So, for example, you have let's say, which card? The healer, the star card. If you remember, it's a woman. She has 1 foot in water, 1 foot on land. She has 2 pitchers, and she's pouring water from both of them. Usually one is into the river, right? One on land, or some variation of that. So this arcanum, this pathway, is used for healing, for working with healing, for working with nature-based healing modalities. So the Druid tradition, for example, the nature-based energy healing, shamanic traditions, and so on. So the entrance point in Hermetic Kabbalah is through 17th Arcanum. What happens? You tune in to that picture. So you tune in, you imagine yourself. You are in a forest. You are on a meadow, right? Maybe at the edge of a forest. Everything around you is green. You're standing by a brook, right? That is running, or by a river. And maybe you even begin, touching that water or pouring that water over yourself. You tune into the greenery, and you tune in also to the light above, to sunlight above you, and start soaking in that green light. That's the energy of the 17th Arcanum. For example, if you want to tune in to a different pathway, something like the Devil card, the 15th major arcanum, right, where there is a devil sitting on a throne and there's a man and a woman chained to it. So you may start imagining yourself in a black cave, first of all, in a very dark cave with a rock under your feet. You're standing on a rock, and in that darkness somewhere there is fire blazing, and then you start walking towards the fire and you see a throne, and you see a creature on that throne, right? And the man and the woman chained. But I'm not going to go too much into it, because not all of those arcana are safe to tune into and kind of really, really dive into, because these energies, they start working with you. But if you tune into the star, for example, and the healing meadow, it's very healing. Nothing horrible is ever going to happen to you if you tune into the 17th Arcanum. So in that version of Hermetic Kabbalah, what we were taught, we did for months, we studied just one of those arcana. It's not tarot cards, but it's the same representations, right? So it's not for divination or predicting anything, but it's to change your energy, to change your reality. So basically, if you want to have, let's say, more personal power, if you want to resolve a situation at your work where someone is constantly pressuring you, and you need to find the strength to answer back at them, right? To tell them, to kind of put your foot down and to say, okay, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. But how to change the energy in yourself so that they don't even want to pressure you, so that they stop bothering you completely. And then you start working with the Fool, a card, right? That it's the first place to start, especially focusing on the boots, on the yellow boots that the fool is wearing. And even when you are attuned enough to that arcana, to the fool, you can simply counter any situation that emerges after you've kind of dived into this arcana, into that visual. So kind of your whole sanctuary now, you are the fool, right? In that sanctuary, and you're constantly attuned to it. And for example, that situation at work, whenever someone tries to yell at you or tell you what to do, you imagine yourself with those yellow boots. And in 90% of the cases, the situations got diffused. That's the interesting part. So it works. It works when you're tuned into that particular frequency, right? When you kind of work with that card for weeks and sometimes months. And those that are higher up in frequency, like for example, the Empress, right? The third are kind of the first and the second, they are very, very high frequency. So those are left for later. So that was the Hermetic Kabbalah, but it's based, the practice is based, quote unquote, on tarot cards, on the symbolism of the tarot cards, but they are used as a way of kind of finding those areas, those pathways within yourself, within your body, within your energy system, within your belief system, right? Within who you are. And so you start working on them and you kind of gather yourself together. You become a magician eventually after you worked through all of those pathways. So that's one of the ways. Now, let's say, for people who are not willing to put in all the effort, of course, and most people would probably not be interested in putting in, months and months, right, staring at the Fool card and trying to imagine yellow boots. But of course, those attunements, they happen first. You have to really sink into that environment. So if you now try to imagine yellow boots every time someone yells at you, it's not going to work. So for that, you need to spend enough time in that sanctuary and really go through an attunement. But of course, the imagery for example, making your own tarot deck, it also comes from the imaginal, right? You go into that space, and maybe if you're stuck on a book or if you're stuck on a painting, you go into the imaginal and you sit there and you allow those images to come to you. And you allow the guides to come to you. And for example, if your love life looked very withered when you were in your sanctuary, so maybe your next project is to grow a garden in your imaginal sanctuary. Now, also, when we talk about quote unquote magic, right? So changing something within yourself to change your reality. I was always trained to do it, not in a ritual, so not burning candles and I don't know, creating altars and bringing offerings to spirit and etc., but to go to the sanctuary and create everything there. So for example, let's say I want to connect to a particular high being that I know will help me. Well, not even a high being, but from a tradition, right? That I know of. And they like to have offerings. So I would go into the meadow and the sun and the sparkling river of the 17th Arcanum. Then I would ask to open the channel of that tradition. I would meet the gatekeeper and I would prepare gifts for them in the sanctuary and just start energizing those gifts. with my intention, with the power of the greenery, with the power of the forest around me, right? Energize the gifts and then bring the offering to the gatekeeper, bring the offering further on to the um, helper, right? That spirit helper that I'm willing to interact with. Um, and you would say, well, but it's just imaginary. Well, how do altars work? It's a representation of an invisible reality. It's just that for some people, the tangible is easier to relate to, but for some people, um, it has to do with also with personal power and many other things. But for some people, it's best to work in the imaginal realm. It's actually more effective, more productive, faster, and safer. I have a lot of good stories about that, but we'll leave them for another time. So that's it's the bridge between the very, very abstract world of the divine, let's say, pure Akashic records, where there is just code and geometries are falling on you and you're not receiving anything per se, and the physical world. So the imaginal, it's like a bridge. It's the language of metaphor, right? Of form, of structure. So the oracles would go into the imaginal and bring the messages there. You would have those uh, prophetic dreams, and then you wake up and you share with the village because you just traveled to the imaginal. That's where you travel to the astral realms. That's where you do your personal magic. That's where you shift the energies. So there is a lot to work with, but kind of we can't do everything at once. And I worked with it years. I started working with the imaginal realm almost 15 years ago. And at that point, I didn't quite get it, but I thought it was fun to play with the sanctuary. And then more and more things kind of started coming from different directions. And I understood that, oh, I'm still working in the sanctuary. So you can have homework, for example, in the next 3 days to grow your love garden or your money garden and to energize it with the light of the sun, with the light of the summer solstice, and to see how it works, right? So before we finish, though, I would love to share just some solstice light transmission just for a few minutes. And let's just close our eyes for a moment and go back to that sanctuary. And imagine that there is a road going from your sanctuary to a big white temple. We call it the atrium. That's my magical grounds, my magical temple, where you can go anytime to receive healing. And standing at the doorstep of that temple, at the entrance to the temple, you look towards the sun. That is just rising. Wherever you are in the world, in the imaginal, in the atrium, the sun is rising. And you can say, dear sun, I open my heart to you. I open my energy field to you. I open my crown and my head and my thoughts to you. I open my heart to you. I open my womb, my belly, my power, my creative power to you. Dear sun, Fill me up with your codes of light, with the new transmission of light, with the abundance. With the codes that establish the whole reality for the next 6 months. Fill up your energy field, inhaling the light of the sun into your head, into your heart, into your belly, and into your root. Allowing that light to fill you up completely. Filling up with the codes of the sun at its peak. The abundance of light. And now the sun is also a messenger of abundance. And if we are not abundant, if we are not happy, if we are not safe, if we are not healed, then the world around is not going to be healed also. So the only way to help anyone or anything, the only way to change the world is to heal ourselves. Everything else is just an escape. So really, escape is not about, escaping the problems of the world. No. We often escape the real problems by let's say, over identifying with the problems of the world. We can have compassion, or we can help millions, and we should, but only if we can help ourselves. And if we can't help ourselves because now we are thinking about millions, then something's wrong. We need to change the direction of the energy, right? So the only place to start is ourselves, our own hearts, and fill up with light. And so I invite you to spend the next 3-4 days connecting to the codes of the sun, really growing the light of your sanctuary, of your heart. Your sanctuary is actually in your heart. It's always within you. You don't even have to go there. It's always there. You don't have to tune in and imagine too much. Your sanctuary is always there. So you can start growing your love garden as it is. So thank you, and many blessings to you.